Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Painting with Daniel. I'm your host, Daniel Tate from the Longview Public Library. This is episode 3, and we are going to do a landscape watercolor painting today. We are going to start with the drawing and then get the whole thing done in one episode. For a link to the image that we're going to use, check the description of this video. Otherwise, let's get drawing. All right, let's start by sketching out our painting. So this is the landscape that we are going to work with. Shout out to my mom for sending me this picture that she took. This is what we'll use. And you can access this picture. A link will be in the description of this episode so that you can use the same image. I've got my pencil here. I have a piece of paper to put under my hand if I need it so that I can sketch and not smudge things. I'm using this F pencil again. Use whatever pencil you've got. I recommend that you draw lightly at first. I will be drawing a little darker so that you can see the marks that I'm making, but draw in lightly and then you can always go back in and draw more. This might be a fun one to draw some because there's little fence posts and you could get in some of those branches, those big branches in this tree, using a pencil later on if you didn't want to paint that in. So how I'm going to approach this is first I'll start with the horizon line here to divide up my painting. I'm using a 5x7 piece of paper. It's basically the same exact size as the screen, which is helpful. But I'll find that horizon line, put that in, and then I'll just lightly sketch in just a little bit of the shape of these clouds. You could even get away with not sketching those in at all. Mostly we want that horizon line and then where that tree is located. And you can just look. A pencil is helpful to kind of measure things out. So getting that tree located on this side and then the horizon line about a third of the way down. So this one, we're going to do very basic sketches in here. You could sketch in those shadows if you wanted. I won't. I'm just going to mostly do horizon line, tree, and a little bit for these clouds. Okay, so this is about all I need to get started painting this landscape. Just have the trunk in here. We will paint in all of those leaves, but this is all the information I need to get started. And we will begin light to dark and filling in the background information, some of this big information, using the same process that we did with the last painting. All right, so now I'm going to get started on the background here, and we'll focus on the blue sky and the green-brown land down here. When putting in, and these are effectively going to be washes, so we'll want to put water down and fill this whole area as well as down here. Start with light blue, and if we need to make it darker later on, we'll come in with more blue, and especially have it light blue down here. And I'm going to use a smaller brush so I can navigate around where the clouds, these two clouds are, and where the leaves of this tree are, because I'm going to want to come back in and make those yellow. So when you're going through here, you can put the blue in and leave some spots just the white of the paper to be those clouds, and then we'll put more blue in towards the top. Down here, we'll just go in with a light kind of green brown. It could be even yellowish if you want. And then towards the end, we'll add in these shadows and we'll make things darker. But we want to go light to dark, so everything we put in right now is going to be lighter. All right, so now I have my sky painted in, my land painted in. That's all I'm going to do for now. I'm going to let this dry. Then when I come back, we'll see if we need to add a little more blue, especially up here in the top. On the horizon line here, the paint might mingle a little bit. I don't mind that. It's watercolor. That's fine for me. I like that look. I was careful to try and avoid areas where I want my clouds to be, and because of how they're highlighted, how they're so brilliant white here, I'll want to keep it that way, and then I can come in with some gray blues later on to make these shadows on them. And same with down here, there's highlights going across, and then we'll continue to add those shadows and darks in there. And the tree will probably pop in next time some of the yellows, the yellow gold highlights in there. And then a lot of that will come towards the end since it's so specific and fine details in there. So let's let this dry and then we'll come back and continue on. All right, now that this is dry, we have our sky in, and we have the ground down here painted in, the nice kind of light yellow gold, and then a blue up here. I want to increase the blue saturation, so make the blue a little stronger up at the top, and then I want to come in closer to the horizon where these clouds are and where the tree is, and I want to add a little bit more blue just to control the shapes of these a little bit more. I'm not going to come in too much with any gray blue for those clouds yet, those shadows. I'm going to leave that, but I do want to, with a smaller brush, bring in some blues around here, and then I'm going to change this yellow color here to more of a green, green brown, or kind of an olive color, especially right along here. I might leave this more of that gold yellow. All right. So I've got some darker blues here in the sky. I use some blue to shape these clouds a little bit more, make them a little bit more expressive and less smooth. And then I added some sky in this tree here, which we will work on in the next segment, where we'll add the greens and yellows in here and start to build up those leaves. And then I shifted the colors down here a bit more. Get that hair out of there. Make this more of a golden brown and then more of yellow, green, gold down here. And we're going to let this dry, and then we'll come back to it and start adding some yellows and greens up here for the leaves, and maybe some greens down here, and work on this foreground land here a little bit more. This has dried enough where I can keep painting now. I'm going to add some light greens in here, maybe some gold browns, some greens down here for these trees, and I'm going to start adding some darker browns into here, not getting rid of all of this light yellow area, but starting to introduce some of those darks. We're not going to get into the shadows quite yet, but we do want to start introducing some darker colors in here. And then I might even come in and add some gray or silver blues into these clouds, where you can see these shadows on these clouds here. So just starting to get more specific about the landscape and some of those details, starting to go more into specific from general. So things are starting to come more into focus now, and begun to add greens and yellows into the top of this tree where these leaves are. I did a lot of wet and wet, letting things be, the paper be wet, and putting color in, letting it kind of swirl and mix on there. And that can give you some nice effects where the colors blend a little bit and things look a little blurry or distant, which is good for this landscape where things are far away. Now we will let this dry, and when we come back to this, we will start adding more darks in here. We have a good base of our lights in, so it's time to start introducing some more darks into this piece. We are pretty dry now. So the next layer, let's go ahead and introduce some darker greens, especially up front here in this part of the landscape. A few in the tree here, the trees there, and then I might come in with some more blues as another layer on these clouds back here. So we're going to go darker, and especially with those greens and some blues, and using smaller brushes that I have, especially to try and create some texture up here for the leaves and texture down here. So I might just kind of make smaller brush strokes, use a smaller brush, and yeah, get some texture going in there as we get more specific with things. And now we've got that painted in, starting to introduce some darks. Let this dry, and then we'll come back for another layer. We're getting pretty close to the end though, and we will start to put even more darks in there. And then for some of these final touches, we can use a teeny tiny brush or a pencil or something like a micron pen and draw in some of these last touches. And that's something I'll probably do at the end, is go in and draw some of these final parts and create even more texture in there. So let's let this dry and then come back in with even more darks. With this dry now, we can keep going, and we're really at the point where we're going to add shadows into the ground here especially, and in this tree. And as I'm painting, I'm really just following the cues here from the image on where to place those. So anytime I see darks over here in the image, I put them in about in the same location there. And the final phase of this painting we'll probably include, I think I'm going to use some pencil to go in here and add texture and add details. So I'm just going to block in the bigger shadows, and then we can also go in at the very end with more of an orange gold wash to perk this up where that sunlight is hitting things. So we can do that at the very end, just a little kind of wash to warm things up. But for now, we're going to put in more of those shadows, and so that's going to be some purples, green and red, purple, and maybe some brown, and those are the colors that I'll work with. And now we will let this dry and come back in and do some of those orange yellow washes, wake some of this up, make it a little more orangey, and do some pencil work as well. And we might lay down that pencil first and then do the washes last. This is dry enough now where we can do some of our final touches. So I'm gonna go in first with my pencil, and I'm gonna perk up these clouds a little bit, do a little bit of sketching there, add some of these fences, or fence posts, I should say, back here, and then maybe add a little bit to these trees, and then come in and really flesh out these branches. I'm going to do this all with a pencil. Oh, I might even do a little bit of texture in here. And then, once I draw all of that in, I'm going to come in with some of that orange, yellow, gold into the tree and into the ground here to wake that up. And you're at the point now where adding your own touches to it, your own details, colors, expressive things that you want to do. This is really where you can start to take the image you're working from and make your painting something unique and something enjoyable and creative and fun. So really go for it. I'm going to do those touches, and then this will be finished. Okay. And I have my pencil marks in there now. Added some texture. Just gave those clouds a little bit more definition. And then some thin yellow, gold, oranges in here as well. I could keep going from here and keep layering things, keep adding darks in here for texture, keep working with it if I wanted to, especially bringing in these darks. But we've got our landscape here. Awesome job, everybody. Thanks for painting a watercolor landscape with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Here's my finished watercolor landscape. Join me next week where we are going to do a watercolor painting of a dog. So that ought to be a lot of fun. This has been Painting with Daniel, and you have been painting with Daniel.